Hey there, Jordan Chariton, live Status Coup. It is, what the hell is today? Tuesday, June 7th, the year 2022. Hope everybody's having a lovely day in these trying times. There's a lot going on, and I want to try and get to as many things as possible. Please do me the kindness of smashing that like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. Also share. Share is next to the button. We very much appreciate it. Super chats are also welcome. We'll read those towards the end. I didn't really know where to start because there's a lot going on. There is something pretty corrupt going on as far as James Clyburn, who we know is revered in the media, revered in the Democratic Party, sadly revered, it seems, in South Carolina. But it was some folks reached out to me about a situation going on down there in South Carolina, right in Jim Clyburn's district, which is pretty outrageous. And you're probably going to be more outraged when you see the financial connections between Jim Clyburn's inaction and what's going on down there. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. But I want to start, and I believe Grumbine is joining me in a few minutes. So hopefully he joins in. I want to start. I tweeted earlier today, which some people didn't like, but I tweeted, let this sink in. 2 weeks ago, if you have the tweet, Colin, 2 weeks ago, a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary. For the most part, corporate media is barely covering it. No wonder politicians get away with doing nothing. And what I meant by that is I had CNN on, so you don't have to watch it. I had MSNBC on. And for an hour, I watched both, kind of going back and forth. There he is. For an hour, I had both on. CNN did 2 segments. There he is. Thank you, Steve Grumbine, Real Progressives.
Let me see if I can hear you, brother.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
There you go. Steve, I was saying we're going to get to Clyburn because there's a corruption thing brewing in South Carolina that the media is ignoring. But I tweeted this morning, essentially 2 weeks ago, 19 kids got massacred, 2 teachers too. And predictably, the media was already moving off of it. I mean, I watched CNN and MSNBC for an hour. There was 3 segments combined, 1 on MSNBC, 2 on CNN. The CNN segments weren't even about Uvalde, just about kind of the horse race on gun control. And I said, no wonder nothing changes. Our media just moves on. And predictably, the media had moved on most of the rest of the day. They're talking about, the January 6th hearings coming up and, other things. And then surprisingly, Matthew McConaughey, that handsome fella, the actor, who I really, I think is a good actor. He's from Uvalde. So this hit home with him. And in a surprise appearance, he spoke at the White House. Frankly, I mean, it's not a surprise. He's a damn good actor. But speaking more concisely and passionately and persuasively than most politicians on this issue. Let's play a little bit of it.
My wife and I, Camilla, we spent most of last week on the ground with the families in Uvalde, Texas. We shared stories, tears, and memories. The common thread, independent of the anger and the confusion and the sadness, it was the same. How can these families continue to honor these deaths by keeping the dreams of these children and teachers alive? Again, how can the loss of these lives matter? So while we honor and acknowledge the victims, we need to recognize that this time, it seems that something is different. Uvalde, Texas, is where I was born. It's where my mom taught kindergarten, less than a mile from Robb Elementary. And that is there that we met 2 of the grieving parents, Ryan and Jessica Ramirez. Their 10-year-old daughter, Alethea. She was one of the 19 children that were killed the day before. Now, Alethea, her dream was to go to art school in Paris and one day share her art with the world. Ryan and Jessica were eager to share Alethea's art with us and said if we could share it, that somehow, maybe that would make Alethea smile in heaven. They told us that showing someone else Alethea's art would in some way keep her alive. Now, this particular drawing is a self-portrait, all right, of Alethea drawing with her friend in heaven looking down on her, drawing the very same picture.
So he spoke for a while longer. He spoke for a while longer. He actually, honestly, it was the best thing I've heard on somebody making the point that the Second Amendment has been bastardized and it actually calls for regulations, i.e. a well-regulated militia. And he called for, in my view, not enough, but, what Biden and Murphy are pushing right now, increase the age from 18 to 21 to buy an AR-15, expanded background checks, blah, 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 blah. But predictably, after noticeably the media had been moving off of the topic of 19 kids massacred, after a Hollywood star came, now they're covering it again. And since he spoke, at least on CNN for the hour after, that's pretty much all they were covering. Fox News predictably freaked out. Let's take a look.
Really interesting to hear him say there, someone from Hollywood, calling to restore our family values in the wake of that mass shooting at that elementary school in Texas.
So that was actually, I shouldn't say freaking out. That was tame for Fox News standards. I'm sure Tucker Carlson will have more to say. But Steve, I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of people don't like Hollywood. I actually liked it that Biden put him forward. He's from Uvalde, so he's from there. And Biden certainly can't persuade anyone. It doesn't even seem like he wants to even fight, which we're going to get to in a bit. So I like that at least they put somebody that could get some media headlines, who spoke well, who outlined the policies. But I also have to say it's pretty reflective of where we are in the media, that you could have 19 kids get killed two weeks ago, and basically they're moving on to other things. By the way, Colin, if we have the article from CNN, there were 13 mass shootings over the weekend. Over the weekend, there were 13 mass shootings, more than a dozen dead, and over 70 injured. And some of those got covered, not many. So this is kind of, I hate to say it, Steve, it's kind of becoming like Sports Center, where you just kind of list the scores and then kind of move on to the next segment.
Well, I think that's what with all due respect to all the alt media, I think a lot of us do that, right? I think a lot of people go through here's what the stories of the day are, and they don't stay on top of a story and ride it from start to finish and provide analysis, even meaningful analysis. A lot of times it's usually just clickbait. But I think that a lot of people have just gotten to the point where that's the level of attention they're willing to give any issue, unfortunately. And, but I will say this, Matthew McConaughey is a Republican. He's a conservative. And,
you sure about that? Cause I thought he was talking about running for governor of Texas.
He may run for governor. He may do something different, but trust me when I say this, he is a Republican, and he's also good friends with Daniel Snyder. He's a Washington Commanders fan. So I have, being a long-suffering Commanders fan, I've been around Matthew McConaughey just showing up at mini camps and all that stuff over the last however many years. But yeah, he's a conservative dude. And so for him, I think that's important. I think that's kind of important to see that people on the conservative side might take a more principled approach to things. I don't know. I think I agree with you on that one.
I am reading, this is from the Sun, so who the hell knows, but he's never openly spoken about his affiliation, but some have assumed he's a Republican largely because he's from Texas. Who the hell knows? He's probably more conservative than most of Hollywood. That is clear. But from what I just read, he hasn't openly said it. But what's incredible to me, moving on from McConaughey, I was just making the point that we live in a sick media. I mean, I just said to Lewis, who's a freelance reporter, he's been doing some great stuff for us down in Texas. It's not going to get any views, but I want you to go back to Uvalde. It's probably not going to go anywhere for us. It's not going to get views, but I think it's important because the reality is, put aside the police incompetence, deadly incompetence, maybe more than incompetence, maybe a cover-up. Put that aside. What about the living victims now? Who's going to tell their stories once the media moves on? What about the community that's might never be the same? What about the parents of the actual victims? There are some of them that want to talk to media, and media are going to leave. For the most part, they already have. So that's what I think makes Status Coup different. We're not going to just go places when the shit pops. We're going to go places even if YouTube's not going to share it and the media no longer cares, because that's where the story is when the cameras leave. I don't mean this as a promotion for us, but frankly, like for Flint, for example, my first trip from my 18th trip, I've been there 18 times, all came after the cameras left in 2016. And that's where I learned of the cover-up, that it was still a disaster, all those things. So we're going to send him back there. But I want to get to Biden because, I mean, we could tee off on Republicans till we're blue in the face, and I always enjoy doing that. But the reality is, first, let's play Chris Murphy's clip. Chris Murphy, who, to his credit, Newtown was his state. He has fought for many years. I mean, he's a corporatist on most other things, but he has legitimately, he's a senator from Connecticut, fought for gun control, banning assault weapons, this and that. Let's talk what he's saying, because right now he's the main negotiator for the Democrats, and he's basically willing to accept a shit sandwich in the name of doing something. Let's see what he said.
So my commitment to them is that I'm not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Of course, I support banning assault weapons. I support universal background checks. But I don't think that we can stand by and let our politics stop us from finding a compromise. Right. So we're talking about some common sense changes to our gun laws that will save lives, some significant funding for mental health. And it won't be everything I want, but I think it'll give parents and kids in this country a sense that we are taking seriously this epidemic, right, and that we're willing to make progress.
So at the front, I'm going to tell you, yeah, it's not enough. It's not actually going to put a real dent in things, but we're going to try something. So that is the definition. I mean, it was the Obama approach. It's the Biden approach of preemptively offering, half a law or accepting half a loaf, and you ultimately get kind of a couple crumbs. Again, there is realities. He's only one senator. You need 10 Republicans. So that's why I'm turning to Biden. We've talked about this. Biden in his speech last week, he had candles behind him to signify the fallen children. Basically, it was a nice speech, but he didn't mention Joe Manchin, didn't mention Kyrsten Sinema. Everybody's on record, 48 senators, they would vote to end the filibuster. You got 2 senators here. I don't know. You got a president. You got a bully pulpit. You could hold press conferences. You could go around the country, hold speeches. The media basically will cover anything you do, good, bad, or ugly. I don't know. To me, the fastest way, when he said enough, the fastest way to actually doing something is don't try and negotiate with the arsonists, because usually arsonists, you can't really negotiate with them. Try to negotiate with the 2 arsonists on your side. Maybe there are more than Kyrsten Sinema and Manchin, and they're just taking the public outcry. But he could very publicly now say, listen, this is life or death. This is our children. This is our elders getting mowed down. We have to end the filibuster for this. It's not in the Constitution. Obama has called it a relic of Jim Crow. It's your turn. It's on your door, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And then you activate, the Democratic base to do something other than ask for money. Well, let's take a look. Tell me if this sounds like Joe Biden is pressuring Joe Manchin, if you have this clip of Biden and Manchin. Colin.
I need glasses. When I look out, the only thing I see is Joe Manchin. Hey, Joe, how are you? God, I wish I had Joe's hair. All kidding aside, all friends, look.
One more time.
I need glasses. When I look out, the only thing I see is Joe Manchin. Hey, Joe, how are God, I wish I had Joe's hair. All kidding aside, all friends, look.
So, Colin, come on for a second. Steve, I don't know if you know this, but Colin right now is working on a big project. Colin, if you can come on, he's working on a big project. Because I said to Colin, you remember when the media in the Democratic primary was feeding us that this man could get things done, that this man could work with Republicans, that this man could work with Democrats? He's the only one who could get things done. And then now we have Colin. The clips you're finding are generally him saying he can't do anything. There's nothing he could do. Correct?
Yeah, I got, if you want, I have 2 minutes worth if you want to show that or not.
Oh yeah, I didn't know it was ready. Let's take a look. Here is, let me set it up. Here is 2020 media manifestation of Uncle Joe and 2022 president.
Joe Biden knows that getting things done means working together. They're all endorsing Joe because he'll bring us together to get the job done.
Since you said it was a public health question, which agency should that question be directed to? Just the very practical, immediate question of if you can't find formula and you need it for your baby to eat, what should they be doing?
We would certainly encourage any parent who has concerns about their child's health or well-being to call their doctor or pediatrician.
There's a lot of young people out there who are supportive of a more, I won't say rational, a more practical path to get things done.
He also believes that everyone should be held to the highest standard, but he'll let members of the leadership in Congress and members of Congress determine what the rules should be.
They want to get things done.
The president continues to believe that no one should be in jail because of drug use. I don't have an update here. We are continuing to work with Congress.
He, in fact, can't get things done. I have watched it.
If Congress were to want to extend that, they need to take action. It's not a executive authority from the White House.
Look, folks, let's talk about progressive. Progressive is getting things done, and that's what we got done.
Because Joe gets stuff done, and that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
I know more than most people know, and I can get things done. That's why I'm running. Congress decides to do is for them to decide. You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. Didn't know what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
Wow. That's a great that's a great start. I love the music, by the way. We'll tinker around with it. We'll tinker around with it till we get the final product. But that's a great start. Steve, I give you the floor because, people say, Jordan, what do you want him to do? Well, I don't know. He's the president. You got 2 senators on the record saying they won't vote to end the filibuster. I don't know. Are you capable as a Democratic Party? Are your officials possibly capable of using the bully pulpit to publicly go on a crusade against these senators? By the way, the Washington Post just did a piece how Joe Manchin literally broke off negotiations for Build Back Better, not based on the policy, but because the White House issued a statement only singling out Joe Manchin. That's why he went on Fox and said, I can't support this. Not because the package was too big or progressive, but because he's so thin-skinned that the White House issued a statement basically identifying him and only him as the one blocking it. You think someone that's thin-skinned would not respond to pressure from the president publicly? I give you the floor.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, guys, you know that I'm not a big Biden guy, right? And Biden has on his desk right now an executive order is written up for him, drawn up to literally eradicate student debt. Period. Just do it. No, you don't need to go to Congress. Don't need to done nothing. Then you've got the sycophants running around talking about $25 billion in these Corinthian college debts being purged. Now, I want you to think about something. Our total student debt is $2 trillion. $2 trillion. That is hundreds of billions of dollars, many times over again. He's forgiving $25 billion. In the grand scheme of things, it's a giant nothing burger. And for those who really don't pay any attention to Joe Biden's lack of getting things done, they get mad at me for some reason, call me defeatist, call me, sapping the will of the voters or some other nonsense. But the fact is that I just call it as it is. I'm a straight shooter. Joe Biden is a feckless president. He is intentionally not doing anything. I don't think he can do anything. When Biden behaves like a Republican and he's in Congress or the Senate or whatever, well, that's a different story. But as president, it's Republicans' job to ignore Joe Biden until he gives them whatever they want. And he said nothing will fundamentally change, folks. And a lot of you really thought something was fundamentally going to change. And you got mad at me for not being on board with Joe Biden. Well, you've got Joe Biden. You're the most progressive president since FDR. Way to go.
And full disclosure, people have a hard time, accepting two things at once, what they call nuance. So I saw one person, Rodrigo, God bless you, in the chat saying, well, you'll vote for him, Jordan. Rodrigo, I respect that. I know a lot of people are very triggered that I personally didn't tell you what to do. That's the difference. I don't tell people what to do. Vote, don't vote, vote whoever you want. I personally made the decision to vote for him. It didn't change my coverage. If anyone could point to me pulling off the gas during the primary, I made that decision based on what I was seeing on the ground covering Trump. Do I regret it? Not really. I knew what I was getting in Joe Biden, but what I was seeing in Trump, to me, was scary. Not that Biden is rainbows and butterflies, but the point is you can make a personal decision while still critically exposing this bullshit.
What you're saying is exactly correct. And what you just said, I support 1,000%. The problem is that there are people, and there are many of them, that if you dare criticize what's going on, you're being divisive. And once they go there, there's no pulling their feet back from that hole they're digging for themselves.
Well, you know what I think's pretty divisive, Steve?
What's
Colin? Colin, do you still have that chart, the income inequality chart? Yes. We're going to start using this one. I think this is probably the most divisive thing, more than any, what did this whole saga on this Washington Post reporter retweeted something sexist? I think this is the most decisive because this is literally the 40-year bank robbery. This is why everybody is not everybody. People are facing eviction. This is why people are swallowing in debt. This, in addition to many other things, is the divisive thing. But
amen, brother.
People want to complain to Steve and me that we're not nice enough.
And I want to just say this for the record. The rant I did last time we were together was pure. It was real. There was nothing contrived about it. What you just showed right there, it literally has a starting point. And the starting point was right in the 70s, and then it took off in the 80s and has steadily gotten worse. I mean, it's like a hockey stick going up since the 80s. And each president, each administration has bought into this. Now, there are people out there that want me to ignore everything I know. And I'm here to tell you that that's not how we change this thing. You do the no harm vote, the least harm vote. You do whatever you do in the voting booth. I'm not here to judge you. I don't give a shit. What I care about is what you do as an activist, as a citizen, as someone that's trying to organize or tell the truth. You can do something that you regret later, or you could do something that was the least worst choice or whatever. I'm not judging you. I want you to be perfectly clear. I am not judging you. What I judge is when someone like myself who lives in these numbers, who focuses on these things, that graph was incredibly important. But when you see that, and I try and explain to you that, no, my friends, it wasn't the Republicans that did that to you. It was the Republicans and the Democrats in equal measure. In fact, Glass-Steagall repealed under Bill Clinton. The welfare reform done under Bill Clinton. All of these very, very getting rid of the ability to file bankruptcy for college debt. Thank you, Joe Biden. Every one of these bad things happened literally by a Democrat. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. So it's not a matter of do the least harm. It's a matter of really They've gaslit all of us. The mainstream media gaslights us constantly. Everywhere gaslights us. People are yearning for somebody to tell the truth.
Right.
And sometimes it's not very pleasant to hear the truth. And Jordan, I give you all the props because you are one of the very few people that does take on unpopular things. And you're not afraid to do it either. I think that's very, very important.
I'll say again, because I just want to address this for it probably won't be the last time, but I really think people, and I think it comes from certain YouTube hosts. I guess you could probably guess who I'm talking about, but Dessert, not picking on you, but I wanted to read your comment. This is the problem with Jordan. He voted blue no matter who. So Dessert, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Number one, I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So there goes your theory of blue no matter who. I voted for Jill Stein. I didn't shame people who voted for Hillary like, you're trying to shame me. But I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Jill Stein, and I actually lost one friend over that and got a lot of grief from other friends. But to me, that was the right thing. In 2020, I made a different determination because I'm not an absolutist thinker. I know that's kind of like what certain YouTube hosts sell, but I don't view the world that way. Not because I'm privileged, but because I was actually, thanks to Status Coup viewers, I was traveling the country and I was covering Trump, and there was a very big difference from me covering Trump in 2016 and what I saw covering Trump in 2020. And what I mean by that, and I don't play the Jew card a lot, but I do know my history. At some of these rallies I was covering of Trump, I literally felt like I was kind of at a low key white revival thing. And it was scary. I mean, obviously Biden's no friend of black people, but what I was seeing at these Trump rallies and what he was saying, and also a point that maybe Dessert didn't consider, and some of the folks that like to bitch about people like me who voted for Biden. Do you think Trump was joking the many times he joked that he wanted to serve more than 2 terms? Do you think that was a joke from somebody who is clearly has a lot of authoritarian tendencies? So to me, listen, if people's minds work that they have to cancel or they can't listen to people or support people because they made a different decision than them, then that's fine. You don't have to watch me. You could only watch people that, validate your pre-existing views. But to me, the important thing is not who I vote for, or who Steve votes for, or who you vote for. The important point is what do we do beyond voting? What do we do beyond the elections? Yes. I think it would be a problem if I voted for Biden and was trying to push. People say, "Oh, you're going to tell people." Literally, there is no video of me telling anyone to vote for Biden, to vote for Hillary, to vote for Nina. I've always made a point, because it always annoyed me when people were journalists telling people, trying to push them to vote a certain way. But what I would say to Dessert and people like him, and I'm not picking on you, but number one, your point doesn't really make sense, because I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, which got me a lot of shit from my girlfriend at the time too. I voted for Biden for reasons I've already outlined. I've gone in longer on other streams, and maybe I could do it again sometime, explaining my process and why I thought. But most importantly, isn't there something backwards between people like Dessert and others who rightly complain about them being voter shamed for not voting, for voting for third-party candidates, but then they turn around and want to voter shame people who made a different choice? The point is, how do we get structural change? If you, for the rest of time, will never vote for a Democrat, that's fine. I don't really give a shit. To me, I look at the individual, not that I was looking at Biden. I didn't vote for Biden because I like Biden. But I think this viewpoint of we're going to cancel anyone if they have a D next to the name, that's fine if you think that. I don't agree with that. Not because I love the Democratic Party, but I look at individual candidates. And frankly, as Steve and I have talked about over and over, the structural change we need is not going to come from the electoral process. That doesn't mean totally ignore it and never vote. But the reason I'm bringing up all this, Steve, is besides the fact that those comments annoy me. I mean, I don't always vote for Democrats, and I've never told you who to vote for. But putting it all aside, Biden right now, there will be another mass shooting possibly today. There will be more mass shootings in the fall at schools, at colleges, at education, at elementary schools, you name it. There will be shootings at concerts. There will be shootings maybe at sporting events that don't have a ton of security. There will be shootings at the mall. If what Biden means by enough, usually enough means I'm going to do whatever it takes to stop this. Right now, the best bet is to go on a public crusade against Manchin and Sinema, say, I'm willing to be a one-term president to actually get real change done. And he's not going to do it. And I just want to play this clip because Lewis, who's been doing great freelance reporting for us, he was at a Beto event. Not because we love Beto O'Rourke, but he wanted to speak with voters and ask them specifically, do you think Biden's doing enough? Let's play a clip specifically on, do they think Biden needs to pressure Manchin and Sinema?
Something that you think President Biden needs to be using the bully pulpit to pressure Sinema and Manchin in particular to actually go through and get rid of the filibuster while they have control over these three branches of government?
Absolutely. I don't know what else he can do. I mean, that's his position. He's got to use it to the best of his ability, so there are no regrets all around. If he's going in there and has his boxing gloves on for something he really believes in and that the majority of the country believes in.
God, yeah, I hope he would. Yeah, I think we could use a lot more pressure, especially on the issue of abortion. 60% of the country supports at least some access to abortion, so I don't see why we can't get women health care, especially when so many people support at least some amount of access to women's health care.
It doesn't make sense because America is so much more demographically diverse. It doesn't make sense to keep a law when a majority of Americans support legislation that is just sitting on those desks.
I mean, I'm sounding like a broken record, but the media's not holding Biden accountable. He's the fucking president. They all said he could get things done. The main thing, if we want to stop this butchering, and no, it's not only AR-15s, although I think they need to be banned, but the main thing, the core policies that could really change something are not going to come from this bipartisan mealy-mouthed deal that's not going to change much of anything. It will come if they get rid of the filibuster, not just on guns, but on Roe v. Wade and a whole lot of other things, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is about this desire for bipartisanship. Like somehow or another, this holy center is somehow or another good. And it's like, if you think about it, you know, if the right is austerity and the left is spending, so to speak, what makes the vaunted center so desirable? I don't understand. Just a little bit of austerity as opposed to no austerity. So to me, I think a lot of what you see with people in general holding Joe Biden accountable, or any politician accountable, quite frankly, is you've got a lot of paternalists, a lot of people running around, running interference and blocking and literally calling the people out that are making demands, that are actually trying to hold them accountable, making them out to be the bad guy, punching down, instead of remembering the people in office are there to serve. And if they're not serving we the people, they need to be a one-termer. They need to be held accountable. They need to be held to account, not just ignored and not just say, well, what do you want, Trump? I mean, that line is so dissatisfying. It's so completely gaslighting you. It's, of course I don't want Trump. Why the hell would I want Trump? The flip side, though, is that when you don't hold these people accountable, you get exactly what the lobbyists and the handlers want you to get, which is more neoliberalism. And until we realize that protecting politicians is harming us, literally harming us, instead of making them elected servants, public servants, and making them serve, I think we're always going to get the same shit sandwich that we get over and over again. I think it's time that we create at least a voters union of some sort. I mean, goodness gracious, we need to be able to, I believe, you quote me on this, tell me I'm wrong, whatever. I believe that if we don't organize outside of the electoral politics, when I say organize, I'm talking about get together, make demands like Occupy Wall Street did, except make demands, have the demands, know what we're striving for, and fight for those things. not sitting there chasing politicians around. My fear is that we get these things started up, and then as soon as the election's over, they die. We need something that's consistent, something that no matter between elections, is consistent, and the same demands are put forward and made. You're not getting our help if you don't do this. You're going to be questioned constantly. You're not going to be able to do a news conference without us raising our hand, asking you why you didn't deliver. We need to be there at these town halls. We need to be there in front of them and make them pay. If we're always protecting them, Jordan, we're never going to get anything ever.
I agree with you. And that's why we're about to move on to corrupt Jim Clyburn, by the way, so don't go anywhere. But that's why I've said, who was I in an interview with? Oh, I think it was with Jay from RBN. I've said, it's quite surprising to me, honestly, because all these people that do 20 videos a week bitching about the squad and Bernie and all this, which, whatever. I mean, I think they're doing it for clicks, but that's neither here or there. Why aren't they organizing protests against these people? I would cover it. I've only had one protest that I could cover with people protesting AOC. And that was, I won't get into Movement for a People's Party, which is a fake political party. And Jimmy Dore is still pushing people to it. But it was organized by them last summer. That was the only protest I've seen protesting AOC. So maybe if you really want to protest politicians that you knocked on doors for them, you made phone calls, you did the texts for them, you donated your money, and they're not fighting hard enough, hashtags aren't going to get it done. Maybe some of these people should organize protests against AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Ro Khanna, Jamal Bowman, et cetera, et cetera. I understand, everybody's spread out. We all can't do it, but they all have offices in D.C. There's a lot of activists in D.C. So to me, it's just crazy. It's interesting because we have this online protesting, which is just some channels. Literally, this is all they do. They just put in a headline, AOC, this and that, bitch, bitch, bitch. But none of them actually organize primaries against them, physically protest. So to me, I mean, talk is cheap. You're either going to organize to oust them and put your own people in, whether it's, trying to run third-party candidates against them. As far as I know, I'm the only person who's even interviewed a libertarian candidate in New York. I've interviewed him twice, Jonathan Howe, who was running against AOC and was kicked off the ballot. Now, I'm no libertarian fan. I like some of his policies, but I'm not a libertarian. Steve, you're a recovering libertarian. But the point is, I'm the only one. He told me he reached out to all independent outlets. I'm the only one that responded and interviewed him. He was undemocratically kicked off the ballot. So it's just a lot of talk and no action.
Let me just say this for us here.
Wait, one more time. Again, Steve, I'm sorry, but I got to address this too. People, you need to understand. I'm a journalist. I don't organize. I think a lot of channels conflate this with myself, even Ryan Grimm to a certain extent. It's not my job to organize protests for you. It's not my job to lead your press conference against the squad. It's my job to cover these things. Sure, I could give an opinion, but Steve doesn't hide it. He's an activist, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. My activism is journalism. So when you are expecting or you're mad that journalists aren't like hashtag fraud squad and like organizing I had people at Standing Rock come up to me asking me if I could help them organize stuff. I had to politely decline. I've had it in Flint. I've had it in many places I've gone because not that they're bad people. They just, obviously they're down. They want their cause out there and they wanted me to help them through, at the time, TYT, now Status Coup. But it's not a journalist's job to organize or prop up your preferred political strategy, whether it's Dem exit, fuck elections. That's not a journalist's job. It's also not a journalist's role to tell you how to vote. That's why I don't. Anyway, go on, Steve.
No, I mean, ultimately, I guess the thing that I wanted to say, for everybody, right, is like you vote however you want, but we are all saying we want Medicare for all, right? And like, for example, there's a Medicare for all Q&A / I don't even know what the hell it's called, but we have a Q&A thing for Medicare for all. I believe it's tonight. We're trying to educate people. That's an education way of getting people that we don't care who they voted for. They don't have to say, oh, I voted green or I voted whatever. But if you look in the state of Pennsylvania, which is where I was starting to go before we addressed that, in the state of Pennsylvania, Addie Barkan and others celebrated literally keeping the Green Party off of the ballot. They literally celebrate. They thought it was the single greatest win they'd ever had. And if you look out there, Addie Barkan's freaking receipts for how much he was celebrating keeping Howie Hawkins off of the ballot, it's just something to behold.
Right.
That's the kind of people that you're looking at and you're saying, gross. I don't care what good you did for healthcare. Gross. That's disgusting. Okay. So I think sometimes people lump in people like you, Jordan, who are actual journalists who are doing journalism. And because you don't call that out as a specific, like you're not chasing them down per se, that somehow or another that means you're sus or whatever, which is bullshit. Ultimately, it's up to us to literally organize. And when I say organize, see, I'm not talking about door knocking. I'm talking about groups of people organizing behind the scenes, going and protesting, blocking traffic, and leaving pamphlets out and telling them, we're not leaving until this is done. Now, for me, unfortunately, part of the problem I have is that I have a very, very rough illness. I have severe arthritis, and I can't get around like I used to be. I put on a bunch of weight. I used to be a skinny guy. Now I'm a fatty. And the fact of the matter is it's hard for me to get around. So I have to yield to younger people that can get out and about, or, people that are in better health than I am. But with that in mind, it's about making the demands, not about who you're voting for, not about door knocking for a politician. It's about making those demands, because there's a lot of people out there, my family included, who think, oh, isn't that a neat idea? Oh, isn't that interesting? But simultaneously will not do anything besides vote. And so I'm here to say vote.
Steve, I just want to let you know, you're not the only old person falling apart. Yeah,
it looks like a gas mask on your knee, dude. You look like an old heavy metal movie or something.
For the audience that doesn't know, I tore my ACL, so that's fun. And I got,
oh my goodness,
a couple weeks. Thankfully, I don't have to get surgery, but it's not a full rupture. It's just tearing and a sprain, so I got to do physical therapy. So anyway, I want to move on because let me tell you something. There is a reason people like Jim Clyburn get to stay in office for 100 years and are revered by the very people that he's fucking over. I'm a white guy saying this, but he is in a district with poor black people. It is the 6th poorest district in the country. That is South Carolina's 6th district. A couple days ago, it came to my attention through activists that there is a nuclear fuel plant. And by the way, smash the like button, share this live stream. There's a nuclear fuel plant in his district. It's Westinghouse Electric that has nuclear and other plants throughout the country. And guess what? It's been leaking radioactive fuel for probably 20 years in South Carolina into his rural, poor, black constituents' groundwater, soil. Well, he's been confronted about it by activists. The media didn't cover it because they're in his pocket. And he said nothing. And let's just take a look in a few minutes, not right now, at how much money is taken from Westinghouse. First, let me read this AP article. This is from a few years ago. No cleanup of nuclear leak in South Carolina for years. Federal regulators say Westinghouse Electric has no plans to clean a plume of uranium under its nuclear fuel factory, despite evidence it could reach South Carolinians' water supply. This is, of course, the Associated Press, so they do kind of, we don't know if it's hitting the residents' water, but it could. Instead, Westinghouse wants a new 40-year extension from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, even though there's nearly a decade left on its current license. So this plant that donates money to Jim Clyburn, they've been leaking radioactive fuel into the groundwater and soil. From the activists I've spoken with, yes, it's in the groundwater, not maybe in the groundwater. It's in the water. They're on well water in this community. The nuclear plume is under the plant south of Columbia and can't be cleaned until the factory closes. But they want a 40-year license. A new license would delay cleanup until 2058. By the way, when all of them are dead in that district, because frankly, it's poor black people and a lot of older black people. It gets better. Quote, the contaminated material will likely be a source of future groundwater and or surface water contamination if the material leaches into the shallow water table, the NRC wrote in a June assessment of the plant, which makes fuel rods for the nation's nuclear power plants. A cleanup would involve removing 10 feet of soil under the building. The NRC report also said a new license, quote, will not significantly affect the quality of the human environment. Unbelievable. So let's look. Now, this is from the state. It's the newspaper in South Carolina. Westinghouse investing $131 million at nuclear fuel plant after recent leaks and spills. They're investing $131 million in its troubled nuclear fuel factory on Bluff Road under a plant that includes improving pollution controls at the facility, which has been plagued by leaks and spills and recently has drawn scrutiny from federal agencies about environmental problems. Quote, South Carolina continues to show that we truly are the place to do business. And this $131 million investment is further testament. Henry McMaster, the governor, said, we're the place to do business where we will do business that poisons you and your folks. So let's get to James Clyburn. Steve, James Clyburn takes the most money from pharmaceutical companies in the country, but he also takes a lot of money from Westinghouse Electric, that is the owner of this plant that's contaminating the groundwater, that's contaminating the soil, and that Clyburn has been silent on. Colin, if you have the graphic of over the years, how much money Mr. Clyburn has taken. 2012, it started. He got $4 grand. You know, might not seem like a lot, but to a congressman in a district that he's not even challenged, yeah, it's a good amount. He's rarely challenged. This year he's being primaried for the first time in a long time. Got 4,000 in 2012, 4,000 in 2014, 2,500 in 2016, 2,500 in 2018, 4,500 in 2020, 1,000 so far this year. Now that's about I think that's 18,500. I've only started looking today. So that's just Westinghouse's PAC directly giving him money. Usually it's not just the PACs funding this giving money to the politicians. I'm sure when I look, we're going to start having to go through the CEOs of Westinghouse, seeing how much money they personally gave to Clyburn. We're going to also have to go through board members of Westinghouse Electric, see how much money they have given to Clyburn. We're going to have to see how much money any sister companies or companies affiliated with Westinghouse has given to Clyburn. So you might say, well, Jordan, that's chump change. Well, it's not. It's not. And Clyburn, theoretically, when it's an older black community, he's got total control over it in terms of he's not going to lose. I mean, I just interviewed his challenger yesterday. I liked a lot of what he said, but he's not going to beat Clyburn. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he might in the future, but this election, I think it would be tough for him to beat Clyburn. But literally, you have James Clyburn, who went to bat for Joe Biden as Joe knows us, speaking about Joe knows the black community, who's doing nothing as his own community is being poisoned. Because make no mistake about it, this ain't my first rodeo. This is the same exact playbook that has happened in other places. They leak, they spill their nuclear waste. Hell, I covered in St. Louis a couple years ago, radioactive material from the Manhattan Project days. So we're talking decades and decades ago. Radioactive material was underneath a suburban St. Louis community. And literally, it was leaking all over the community. Children had to play outside in masks. But the politicians would not force that plant to close down because that plant and that company had lined their pockets. So children were the acceptable collateral. and they had to wear masks playing outside. And that community had a very, very high asthma rate. And guess what? Clyburn's district has an extremely high cancer rate. A radioactive material being leaked into groundwater and soil. Yeah, you're right. Nuclear waste is everywhere in this country. Try going to Tennessee, sky-high cancer rates. But the point here is, this is a man who is revered by the black community, mostly the older black community, if we're being honest. This is a man that, would Biden have won South Carolina without his endorsement? Yeah, Biden was going to win South Carolina. But would he have won by 30 points if not for Clyburn's endorsement? No. This is a man who goes all over the place to try and stop progressives. He just went to Texas to support the last anti-choice Democrat, Henry Cuellar, who also had an A rating from the NRA. He went there to campaign for him. But he went to Cleveland to campaign against Nina Turner twice. So he's very capable of going and campaigning against progressives. He's not capable of doing something about a radioactive nuclear waste that's being spilled into groundwater and soil. And by the way, the South Carolina Environmental Department, speaking with a source earlier on the phone, they're corrupt as sin. Guess what? I know about corrupt environmental departments. I give you the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, who helped cover up the poisoning of Flint. By the way, I'm currently working on another investigative piece about Flint because I'm not going to stop investigating this, and I'm not going to stop covering it, because in a country, we don't really live in a country, we live in the United Corporations of America, but in a country, when a community is poisoned and then the residents are left to die, the media should never move off of that until the full truth gets out and there's some justice for the residents. So that's my activism, actually investigating and staying on a story, even if the rest of the media has moved on, even if independent media never covers it, frankly, because we should not normalize the government poisoning citizens and then leaving them to slowly die and declaring it all fixed. Meanwhile, here, they are literally, the media is covering the fact that Clyburn is covering up the fact that Clyburn is doing anything. He's not doing anything. Clyburn was confronted about this, didn't do anything. Who the hell knows how much of the high cancer rate in this district, again, the 6th poorest district in the country, but yet this man keeps getting elected. He's been in office since 1992, 30 years. I want to play a clip from my interview with Marcel Dixon, who is the primary challenger to Clyburn. He was pointing out the ridiculousness that not Clyburn. Clyburn didn't bring water to another disaster, Denmark, South Carolina, which has had an unregulated chemical dumped in its water for over a decade and has a water crisis there. Denmark, which is also in Clyburn's district. It wasn't Clyburn who came to hand out clean water. It was Bernie Sanders. Let's take a look.
They want to tell us that it's all good. Just like in Denmark, South Carolina, also Clyburn's district, where they were putting an untested, unapproved chemical in these majority black, majority older black people's drinking water for 10 years. The people don't trust the water. Yet you have these institutions telling them the water's fine, drink it, just like they're doing in Flint. Flint gets more attention because it's a larger city. Denmark is a small majority black town, 3,000 people. It's supposed to be Clyburn's job to bring attention to this. Yet Bernie Sanders brought water. He brought pallets of water for people in Clyburn's district to get. Last time I checked, Bernie is a senator in Vermont, not in South Carolina. Bernie's state is a majority white state. Why is he having to come to Clyburn's majority black district to give majority black people clean drinking water, while Clyburn is the third most powerful Democrat in office?
Absolutely.
It's criminal, the neglect this man has shown us. I've lived through his neglect. I went to the corridor of shame schools.
That was Marcel Dixon, who, by the way, for full disclosure, I missed two important things on his policy page that if I would have read them, I certainly would have challenged him on it. Although I love a lot of his policies, particularly the fact that he is very, very strong on reparations, which frankly, I don't think Bernie was right. I think Bernie should have been calling for reparations. Credit to Marianne Williamson for calling for reparations. He is Marcel. I mean, you should watch the interview. There's a ton of stuff that's amazingly refreshing, and he is the only one calling for it. And there's an anger in his voice about what has done to black people that you do not hear in elected black politicians. However, just so the audience knows, because I didn't bring it up, because I frankly, on me, I missed it on his page. He is not pro-choice. He calls for alternatives to abortion. And he also is against what he calls illegal immigration. Now, just to give you his whole, just to give you his complete, view on it, because I did reach out to him after the interview when I learned that he was not pro-choice. I did ask him, if he could explain his position to me. He wrote back, I'm opposed to abortion outside of medical emergencies. Once the child has a beating heart and cerebral activity, abortion has seen 20 million black babies killed due to poverty. And instead of addressing black poverty, people prefer more dead black bodies, not me. Women should have choices. Killing more black babies is not one of them. So that's what he said. I wanted to make sure the audience was aware, because I didn't bring it up because it was just bad on me. I looked at his policy page and it was kind of towards the bottom and I didn't see it. I get what he's saying. I have to say that I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think we should address poverty, but that doesn't mean taking a woman's right to choose what she does with her body away from that woman, whether they're black, white, it doesn't matter. So I completely disagree with that, although I get what he's saying as far as, not killing more black babies. As far as him being against illegal immigration, his viewpoint on that is they're taking jobs away from black people. I don't agree with the term illegal. They're humans. And I also don't agree that they're taking jobs away from black people. I think institutionally, the government has never created a system for black people to get the same economic opportunities as white people. So I just wanted the audience make sure you guys do those two things. If you're in South Carolina and you're voting in this district, or just if you watch the interview, I want to make sure you guys know the whole picture. But the bottom line is, and keep those super chats coming, I'll read them at the end. Steve had to go to deal with something with his kid. But the bottom line is, the reason James Clyburn stays in office for 30 years, the reason that he is revered in South Carolina, the reason that the media continually gives him journalistic slobbering, and the reason people don't actually know the reality, because you usually learn the activity not from the media, but from activists on the ground who I speak with all the time. For people who say, "Oh, Jordan, you're a Democratic sycophant." Name one channel that has given more activists in this country a microphone than Status Coup. But the reason all of this continues is because we don't actually we have a media that is complicit with the corruption. We have a media that will not cover or challenge Clyburn down there or nationally because they are funded or owned by corporations. That's why I say we live in the United Corporations of America. We have a media that literally, you have journalists that I have spoken with that are investigating, they're finding the goods. And once they find the goods on people like Clyburn and they begin writing the story, their editors kill it. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with that work at corporate media outlets that have told that. That's happened to me when I used to work at MSNBC. So that's the reason. Do you think people would want to vote for James Clyburn if they knew that he was literally getting funded by the very plant that is poisoning them? Do you think the people in his district, the 6th district, one of the poorest in the country, would just be silent if they knew the full scope of this plant and how much fuel has been leaking, for how long it has been leaking? Look at what's going on in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor. The Pentagon was literally leaking nuclear fuel that was stored right above the aquifer in Hawaii. The Pentagon was spilling that fuel for 4 decades. The Pentagon knew it. They said nothing. Activists went to the media for year after year, went to politicians year after year. Nobody did a damn thing until it became so obvious and they couldn't ignore it anymore. And to the viewer who made the comment, to be clear, this ain't only happening in South Carolina. I covered this in St. Louis at a nuclear waste plant where that fuel was leaking from the Manhattan Project days. They had buried stuff there. There is nuclear waste being buried all over the country. You have arsenic buried under the ground that many times is leaking. Yet James Clyburn is revered. So I'm going to continue digging on this story, even though my wife might get mad at me because I do have a tear in my ACL and I'm not supposed to be traveling. I might go down to South Carolina and cover this. Because I know, a lot of people say, oh, Jordan, you're not really, you're not left enough, while they watch the real left spending 80% of their time doing left things, like spending 80% of their time shitting on YouTube hosts for clicks, while I actually go out and cover these things. But even with a tear in my ACL, I might go to South Carolina because, frankly, this is why we have a status quo, because there is very, very, very few in the media that actually expose this stuff. And it's happening in a poor Black community. Meanwhile, James Clyburn got away with saying Joe knows us. Well, apparently, Mr. Clyburn knows that his constituents are being poisoned and he's not doing a goddamn thing. And I'm pretty sure that he is taking more money than the money I just showed you. Before I leave, I want to do one quick story. Oh, by the way, while we have a good viewership, I want to remind people, if you are not signed up on our text list, this is very, very important. If you're not signed up for our text list, sign up for our text message list. It is free. We only text you when we are live. We rely on text message to make sure you know when we're live. YouTube's notification system is a disaster. I think it's intentional. They don't notify people for every video. We only technically get 3 notifications a day, but only 10%, by the numbers, only 10% of our subscribers have clicked the bell for all notifications. So if you are a subscriber and you've already clicked the bell and the bell is next to the subscribe button, go back and make sure it is still on all notifications, because a lot of times you are manually removed for whatever reason. So go click all notifications. But most importantly, sign up for our text list. If you are not on the text list, statuscoup.com/text, enter your number. You will get a text message when we're live. This way, we do not need to rely on YouTube to notify you when we are live. We even might start sending out text messages for shorter videos that we post that you're probably not getting notifications for. It is, by the way, we have to pay. It is expensive for us to build this text list. Colin, if you can come on for a second, for every time we grow this list, they charge us more. It's a very scam system. But I would rather pay money in this text service to make sure people know when we're live than continue where maybe 10% of people know when we're live. So Colin, all it takes is them putting in their statuscoup.com/text, putting in their number. And by the way, we might do a promo. We might announce it next week for people on our text list. So if you sign up for our text list, if you're already on our text list, great. If you are not, sign up and you may be entered into a contest for some Status Coup swag. But very important because, Colin, would you say that maybe 10% of people are getting notifications?
If even, and you see that often if you're here early in the stream, if you happen to catch it right when it's starting to premiere during the countdown and all that, you'll see, if you look at the numbers, you'll see it's at a certain number and all of a sudden it'll jump up, and that's usually after I send the text and stuff, and then it'll slowly build after that text is sent, because just that that's how people find out, because YouTube, not only are they saying it to less people, but then if we happen to go live or something without a notification, then we're sort of SOL without the text notification.
Right. And by the way, YouTube only allows 3 notifications, and it's kind of a weird system. So sometimes 3 notifications within 24 hours. So sometimes if you post 1 extra video beyond the 3 notifications, they will not notify you at all. They won't notify anyone for that 4th video. That's why if you see channels like Breaking Points, they just post all of their stuff right at once to get viewers in the habit of 12 o'clock. We're all of our videos at once, but they have a much bigger audience than us. So when we tried to post all our videos at once, it kind of the videos kind of cannibalized each other, and all of them got less views. So that kind of thing where you just post all the videos at once at the same time every day, it works if you're a huge channel, and people kind of get it in their head, oh, I'm tuning in at 12. But for us, it didn't work. Each video got less views because they cannibalized each other. So bottom line, please, it's free. Sign up, statuscoup.com/text. And the other thing is, summer's here. Summer is here. Our store is open and ready for you. Go to statuscoup.com/store. Get your swag. We got the United Corporations of America shirt. We got the Fossil Fuckers shirt. We have a wonderful quote shirt, a quote that I often say, which a few people ask me, can we make a shirt out of that? Most people are not lacking compassion. Most people have no fucking idea what the hell is going on. We're going to be adding other swag to this store, but hey, it's a conversation starter. I wore my United Corporations of America shirt the other day. A couple people said, where'd you get that shirt? I told them, in my fucking store, statuscoup.com/store. And I think I saw one person purchase it that I think is somebody I met the other day. So statuscoup.com/store, get your swag. And lastly, if you're not a member, this is how we fund trips like the trip I'd like to take to South Carolina to expose James Clyburn. So that's statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. statuscoup.com/join. One last story for you. CNN. I don't know if you know this, but CNN now has a new chairman or CEO. They fired Jeff Zucker, who apparently had a mistress and was basically working with Andrew Cuomo when Cuomo was doing those press conferences. So while Jeff Zucker was like the president of CEO, he was also helping the governor look good at his press conferences. So, CNN, very corrupt. Anyway, CNN is currently evaluating its partisan talent. CNN's new boss, Chris Licht, is evaluating whether personalities and programming that grew polarizing during the Trump era can adapt to the network's new priority to be less partisan. If talent cannot adjust to a less partisan tone and strategy, they could be ousted. 3 sources familiar with the matter tell Axios. Licht wants to give personalities that may appear polarizing a chance to prove they're willing to uphold the network's values so that they don't tarnish CNN's journalistic brand. Oh, boy. Oh, fucking boy. So apparently the problem with CNN is that it's too partisan, not that it's a propaganda mill. So the new president of CNN wants to go back to the good old days where you have Democrat lobbyist A on the left, Democrat lobbyist B on the right, put a journalist in the middle, and have a neutral debate where Democrat lobbyist A lies, Republican lobbyist B lies, and then the neutral journalist says, thanks, everybody. Cue to the Viagra commercial. So that's what this new president wants to do. He wants to tone it down as people are being evicted, as people are facing, we're about to hit an average of $5 a gallon. $5 a gallon nationally. In California, I just spoke with Tina, it's $8 in some places. They want to be less partisan and more neutral, so to speak, as the climate continues to burn and the planet continues to burn. They want to be less partisan and more neutral as children are massacred in schools and black people are massacred in grocery stores by white supremacists. They'd like to be less partisan, as Colin, I put this at the top of the live stream sheet last minute. I don't know if you have it. As new study comes out showing that 1 in 4 children are now being found to have long COVID. Yeah, I know. The COVID's overcrowd and it's no different than having a cold. Yeah, well, 1 in 4 children now that get COVID are suffering with long COVID. And if you don't know what long COVID is, read an article. It's brutal. And the people that are posting their stories on Twitter and elsewhere, a lot of these people are 30 years old, 35, 40, can't get out of bed months after having COVID. So that's what CNN wants to do. It wants to shift from, I guess, I don't know, too partisan, which I guess that just means like being the resistance against Trump, to basically, I mean, they're still pretending to be neutral robots, but I guess be way more neutral robots and way less ranting and raving about Trump. Because that's what we need in media. That, by the way, has more resources in its little left pinky than Status Coup will ever have. So on one end, it's a good thing because it will drive more people away. I mean, these idiots think this is going to get them more viewers because people want neutral robots to basically just regurgitate lies from Democrats and Republicans. But yeah, I thought that was important to tell because this is a major problem. And I've always said to viewers and even people that criticize me, you know, it's fine to protest politicians' offices. It's fine to protest corporations' offices. People always forget about protesting outside media outlets, especially local media, because they are the ones that are literally doing the public relations for the politicians and for the corporations. They are the ones allowing the normalization of people being evicted during a pandemic, mass homelessness in the wealthiest country on earth, people, communities being poisoned and then left to die, the climate burning, children being massacred. The media is the one that normalizes this by actually just pretending it's fine. Do you know if this happened in the United Kingdom where 19 kids were killed in a classroom, they would be covering it for months. The media would be looking for blood. They would be challenging the politicians. Here, since the Uvalde massacre, do you know the journalist that challenged a politician the most? Nobody from CNN, nobody from MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post. It was a Sky News reporter. A Sky News reporter, which is interesting because that's owned by Rupert Murdoch. But a Sky News reporter challenged Ted Cruz about the guns. And Ted Cruz got so hot and bothered that he said, well, I'm sorry you don't appreciate American exceptionalism. I'll have to look into that, Miss Sadie. She says March for Our Lives is protesting on June 11th. But I got to tell you something. This might not be popular to say, but I got to say it. And for Status Coup OGers, you're hearing a broken record here. It's not enough to protest. It's not enough to protest. They'll let you protest. Again, they will let you protest. The corporations will let you protest. The politicians will let you protest because they know you're going home the next day and the rest of your protest will be in hashtags. Same thing goes for the folks fighting for student loan cancellation. I'm not poo-pooing your protest. I think it's great that you're protesting. I'm not poo-pooing your protest. It's great to get out there. I certainly would never tell Black Lives Matter, indigenous people, Hispanic people, any, women's rights, gay rights, protest. But the real bosses right here in the United Corporations of America, they'll let you circle around the blocks. If you get a little too out of line, they'll use their protectors, the police, to bash your heads in. Go ask the indigenous people at Standing Rock, black people who protested in Ferguson, Charlotte, Baltimore, St. Louis. these protests need to start adding their wallets. Because let me tell you something, if 1/10, and I'm sorry that you hear this over and over from me, if the millions of people that went out to protest for George Floyd, imagine if even 1/10 of those people started protesting with their wallets, boycotting Amazon, boycotting big box stores, boycotting fast food, boycotting corporate banking. And by the way, it's not easy. There's a lot of poor families that they could only afford McDonald's or, cheaper products for their kids. By the way, McDonald's is now in many locations automizing and getting rid of actual customer service and making you choose your meal from a machine. So automation has come too. But imagine if the people protesting with their feet on the ground started organizing to economically withhold your money. Because you could withhold your vote. That's fine. If you don't want to vote for Democrats or you don't want to vote for anybody and you're done with electoral politics, great. But what's really going to put on the pressure is if you withhold your money. Because I promise you, this I know for sure. I've been doing this for 7 years. If Jeff Bezos and Amazon, if their quarterly profits go down 4 to 5%, you'll start seeing some change in Washington, and you'll see it quickly. All these YouTube hosts out there telling you hashtag fraud squad, this, that, the other thing. And they're lying to you that this is actually going to create change. They're lying to you that if we just do 20 videos a week, putting YouTube hosts in a headline and bashing YouTube hosts and bashing politicians, that's going to get us revolution. No, it's not. It's clickbait. What actually gets change, and go ask, well, you can't ask him because he's dead. Go ask Franklin Delano Roosevelt why he pushed the New Deal. He didn't wake up one day. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, look up your history. He wasn't naturally a progressive. Strong labor unions put a figurative gun to his head. That is economic strength. Labor unions were strong back then, and they pressured him, and they threatened strikes. So, do I think we're going to have a general strike tomorrow? No, I don't. I don't think we're going to have a general strike tomorrow. But do I think if all the people marching for Medicare, all the people marching for student loan debt cancellation, all the people marching for climate action, all the people marching for DACA, DACA recipients, name your cause. If even 10%, 20% of those people came together and said, what are some economic actions we could take? Not a first of the month boycotting Amazon. Yeah, okay, do it for a day. It's not going to do anything. You might see some real change because the donors will revolt. And it's not the politicians making the decisions. It's not Joe Biden making the decisions. The reality of why the filibuster, of why Biden will not fight to end the filibuster is because the donors like the filibuster, because it maintains the status quo and it allows minority rule, whether it's the Republicans in the minority, the Democrats in the minority, to have all the power because they could stop anything structural or bold from happening. And that's why you get bipartisan victories, which is really just, if you hear bipartisan, it's usually you're being fucked up the ass. Excuse my French. Let's read some super chats. VA from New York. Why does the Democratic Party deserve our support? I genuinely, I'm not being like condescending. I'm genuinely at a loss for these people that keep pushing this because I'm not telling you to vote for the Democratic Party. The people that say this, please find video of me telling you to vote for Joe Biden, me telling you to vote for Hillary Clinton, me telling you to vote for Nina Turner. I guess like to folks like you, like the very act of me covering an election where someone's running as a Democrat is like treason. I don't know how to answer this because I'm not telling you to support the Democratic Party. What I have said what I have said, which maybe some people don't understand, I've said, okay, what's next? To the people that basically think if we just rant on YouTube, if we just rant on the internet, burn down the Democratic Party, if we just rant loud enough at YouTube hosts that we've decided to cancel, if we just rant loud enough and organize hashtags, that will bring us change. Or like that, Jimmy says, that makes them fear you. No, it doesn't. It makes them laugh at you. Nobody fears Jimmy Dore in Washington. Sorry to break, hurt his feelings there. Nobody fears him. So my whole thing is, okay, what is your strategy beyond that? Because I don't particularly care if it's to take over the Democratic Party or leave the Democratic Party, or it doesn't matter to me. I'm for what is the quickest way to structural change. And I'm sorry to tell you, trust me, it would be a lot better for this channel. It would be a lot better for Status Coup in terms of money and clicks and growing this channel if I just switched our format to bashing YouTube hosts every day and drama and all caps in headlines, bashing certain YouTube hosts and drama and hashtag fraud squad. We'd grow like gangbusters. But like, I'm not going to just trade my integrity for clicks. If I wanted to do that, I would have just covered Trump 24/7 5 years ago. So to that super chat, thank you for the super chat, by the way. I don't really get the question. Why does the Democratic Party deserve our support? I've never said to support the Democratic Party. So by me going to cover Nina Turner's election, that means I'm telling you to vote for the Democratic Party? No, I'm covering an election of a high-profile progressive who I personally like. I personally support her. I don't live there. I can't vote in that district. So I personally like her, but I'm covering an election. If there were a lot of Green Party elections I could cover where the candidate had a chance, I would cover it. And by the way, to the very people asking that, hey, VA, what does the Democratic Party deserve our support? On our homepage, click on playlists. So on any YouTube channel, you could click on playlists. Most channels have a playlist. Click on third-party playlist on this platform. Name another channel that has interviewed more third-party candidates than me. I've interviewed Green Party candidates. I've interviewed independents. I've interviewed a libertarian twice in the last month. I'm interviewing him again tomorrow. So, yeah, I just reject this. You could criticize me for a lot of things, but I still don't get this point. Basically, VA and people like you, God bless you. It seems to you, if I, a journalist, is not like putting in my background hashtag fraud squad and calling to burn down the Democratic Party, that I am a sellout. And if that is your worldview, then don't watch. Because to me, that's a very toxic worldview. Carrie, $10 tip. We start by our wallets. Quit supporting them. Quit sponsoring. Quit buying products not made in the USA. I very much like that. I love that. Thanks, Carrie. Richard, $5. Thank you. Appreciate it. VA from New York, $20. Trivia night at 8 p.m. Register at Medicare for All website. Google it. Okay. Trivia night at 8 p.m. Register at Medicare for All website. Google it. All right, folks. Just Google that. Medicare for All website and a trivia night. Jay, the informant, $2. Jim Clyburn is terrible. I agree. Black Rain, $19.99. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheryl Tyler, $20. Thank you, Cheryl. Kat Faye, $2. Jordan brought me back from the brink of nihilism. I'm glad. And by the way, I have to say what I have meant by nihilism, because people get very triggered if you call them nihilists. What I have meant by nihilists is I think a lot of good-hearted and righteous progressives have kind of been hoodwinked by certain YouTube hosts that it's somehow activism, or you're somehow organizing, or it's somehow productive, or you're doing something by just ranting on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook. I think anger is a good thing if actually weaponized correctly and weaponized to actually get results. But anger for the sake of anger and us all just bitching and moaning on social media for the next decade or two, while the United Corporations of America continue stomping on us, that's not going to do anything. So what I have meant by nihilism is you are right to be angry. I'm angry. You are right to feel hopeless. There's a lot of times on the road, Colin can tell you. Colin travels with me. Colin, how many times on the road do I tell you, I don't know what the fuck we're doing here?
A decent amount. Each trip for sure is, especially because it's, as you've tried to communicate, it's different when you're also being a viewer, seeing all this sort of like downtrodden stuff happening and not seeing much change. But when you're seeing it, like looking in people's faces,
right,
and seeing the same thing years after years, then yeah, I can see how you do say that. Yeah, each trip.
I mean, I'm not a drunk, but Colin, do I not say I need whiskey on every trip? I'm not I don't have a drinking problem, but on these trips, I mean, a lot of time just to get out of what I just saw during the day, whether it's in Flint or other things, I'm going to a bar just to numb it. I know there's better ways of doing it, but you get my point. So trust me, to the people that say, Jordan, you're not angry enough, you're not with me 24/7. But again, just ranting on YouTube it doesn't mean you're the pure one. It's just ranting. And hey, we all need to rant sometimes. I certainly do. I rant quite a lot. But to me, what is the strategy beyond ranting and bitching? Das Bosch Fleiss, 499 euros. Are you pro-choice during the entire pregnancy? Or do you draw a line at a certain stage of development? That's a good question. I'm not pro-choice for the entire pregnancy. Like I wouldn't say if you're pregnant for 6 months, go get an abortion. Of course not. But I'm pretty pro-choice at normal levels. I don't have like an exact week to answer you. But I'm fairly pro-choice. But no, I'm not like at the point where, you're 4, 5, 6 months into a presidency. But I'm pro-choice. Like a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant for 7, 8 weeks. And I'm pro-choice, at least for the first, trimester of a pregnancy. And by the way, let's just be clear. If any female politicians tried to pass any law that abridged men's rights to do anything, to get a vasectomy or anything like that, you would see a violent protest like you've never seen before if men's rights were infringed upon. Fly Jumper Fly, $20. Jordan, you have declared a bias with your reporting since you are aggressively against the United Corporations of America. We are too, but progressives are undercovered by MSM, so we need as much coverage by you that you can do, please. Absolutely. I tried to do as much as I can. If you notice on the channel, I've been interviewing. I've interviewed working people that are suffering as part of our Economic Hunger Games series. Right now, I'm starting to put more of a focus on people organizing around the country. There's a few interviews up from the weekend. I just interviewed somebody with a tenants union in LA. They're fighting a 300% rent increase. That's up on the channel. I'm starting to contact other tenants unions too. During the pandemic, we went on 2 reporting trips, just interviewing people, including homeless people that were being evicted. So I'm doing as much as I humanly can as one person. But absolutely, I completely agree. And in terms of a bias in my reporting, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a bias as a reporter. Like, there's plenty of good, like conservative. Well, I wouldn't say good. There's plenty of good reporters that are openly like liberal or openly progressive or openly conservative, whatever. It's not about whether you have a bias or not. It's about, does that bias impact the facts? So does your worldview make you twist the facts? Because at the end of the day, a journalist's number one role is to be accurate, to be correct with what they're reporting. And we're all human and we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes, like I acknowledged earlier when I interviewed the challenger to James Clyburn. I missed on his page that he was pro-life and against illegal immigration. I just wish all these reporters would stop pretending they're not biased, like CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, and pretend they're just neutral. No, none of them are neutral. And by the way, this idea of neutrality came on later in the arc of journalism. If you know the history of journalism, the original days of journalism was opinion. Journalists had opinions. The neutral journalist thing came along in the advent of the advertising age, when advertisers started wanting to advertise with corporate news, cable news, print newspapers. They did not want anything too controversial because they're advertisers. So they wanted these outlets to be neutral, and neutrality became a thing in journalism. The most important thing is not whether you're neutral, because there are things you should not be neutral to. You should not be neutral to 19 kids being massacred in a school, or 20 kids being massacred in Newtown, or nearly 60 at a concert in Las Vegas, or name your other shooting, 10 black people at a grocery store in Buffalo. Shouldn't be neutral to the planet burning as the politicians take money from the fucking companies burning the planet. Shouldn't be neutral to parents and children being separated. The key is not being neutral. The key is, are you objective? I could like, for example, if I covered Nina Turner's campaign, right? I personally like Nina Turner, but if I discovered something that was deeply corrupt, that Nina Turner did something deeply corrupt, I would report it. I might even lose supporters for that, but I would report it. So when your bias or your worldview prevents you from delivering the truth, that's a problem. But to answer that super chat, I've done everything I humanly can to, put a spotlight and elevate, people, progressives who do not get a voice in the mainstream media. And I'll continue doing that. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Double K, 1999. Thank you so much, Double K. Teresa, $5. Thank you. VA from New York, $5. Trivia night, register at March for Medicare for All. March for Medicare for All, Medicare for All. Thank you. And Dave, $5. Just reread the 71 Powell memo. The 71 Powell memo last night. It kind of puts the last 50 years in context. Thanks for what you do. That's funny because I read that 2 months ago, the Powell memo. Everyone should read the Powell memo, which basically is a playbook for what the corporations have done over the last 40 years, 50 years, actually, and what the Democratic Party and Republican Party has done. You have to read it. It's not short, but definitely read it. It's important reading. Double K, 1999. Thanks again for another super chat. Double K. Before I go, let me make sure I don't miss any other comments. Colin, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. These newbies, blah, 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 blah. Yes, the Powell memo is extremely important. And by the way, if you don't know what the Powell memo is, just to kind of give you, it's basically a memo by, let me make sure I have his full name. From the future Supreme Court Justice Lewis Powell, that essentially gave corporations a call to arms, how corporations should deal with leftists, activists, et cetera, et cetera. And that they have basically used this playbook to a T. To a T. All right, we got another super chat. Fly Chomper Fly. Truth appreciated for your audience. Calling all progressives. We have a couple weeks only left in Chicagoland with a very close race against a corporate Democrat. Please help June aid for Congress. Your help may be what wins. Thank you, Fly Chomper Fly. June aid. And again, I hate to say it. If this triggers people, so be it. To the very people saying, stop, what do they say? Sheep herding people into the Democratic Party. What do you want these candidates to do? Genuine question. What do you want the working class candidates in Chicago or in Cleveland or name your place? What do you want them to do? You want them to give up 2 years of their life on top of their day job, on top of raising children for a lot of these candidates. What would you like them to do? You want them, even in most areas where they have no chance, if they run as a Green Party, if they run as independent. For example, somebody said, "Oh my God, it's too bad. I love Marcel, the candidate I interviewed yesterday, who's running against James Clyburn in South Carolina. But I can't support him because he's running as a Democrat." Well, what do you want him to do? You can't win in South Carolina as an independent. Not today. I mean, it's all wonderful to want to push for a third party, but as of now, based on the system we have, you want these candidates to give up 2 years of their life and just run a vanity campaign that they know they have no chance to win? Maybe, I mean, if you feel that way, do it yourself. Most people don't want to give up 2 years of their life, work their full-time job, raise their kids, go knock on doors, go get the signatures you need to get on a ballot, put your blood, sweat, and tears, because if you're a progressive candidate that's not taking corporate money, it's an uphill climb to win, even as a Democrat, and they're going to try to screw you. But like, to the people saying, I'm not going to support them if they're running as Democrat, I'm not telling you, support the Democratic Party. I'm just saying, what do you want them to do? You want them to run as an independent and lose? I mean, if this guy ran as an independent in Clyburn's district, I mean, he's already going to lose. I'm just being honest. I mean, maybe he'd get a couple hundred votes. Maybe. As an independent. So I'm all for a third party, but until there's an actual infrastructure for these candidates to get on ballots, raise money, get media attention, and compete. Now, I'm not saying in no circumstance, like Matthew Howe or Ho, I don't know how you pronounce it. He's an Afghanistan veteran. He's running Green Party in North Carolina. I interviewed him. Do I think he's going to win? Probably not. But he's running. He just got on the ballot. And I think he's got a chance to get a decent amount of votes, possibly a couple percentage points. So I interviewed him. But for him, his run, not that he has an amazing chance to win, but he's got some shot to compete. But it's asking a lot to ask people, give up your life for 2 years, because it's 2 years if you want to run, that it'd be doomed from the start. And Michael, I understand this thought process. You will never have a viable third party if everyone just keeps running Dem or Republican. I get what you're saying, but there's more to it. How do you get a viable third party? It's not just, oh, well, we need more people to run third party to have a viable third party. You need an infrastructure. So, for example, MPP, they've been going for 5 years. They don't have any candidates. They were saying they were going to have candidates running in 2020. It's 2022. They were saying they were going to have candidates running in 2022. It's 2022. They don't have any candidates running in Congress. They're not on the ballot. And from my reporting, it's a goddamn shit show. State parties are fleeing because national, including Mitch DeBrana, run more as a lot of the people call him Nictator for dictator. Green Party has an infrastructure, but the Green Party has its own problems and hasn't been very well organized over the years. So it's not enough to just run candidates in a third party, and that's going to build up a third party. You need actual structures that are growing. Say what you want about DSA, for example, but DSA has been growing for years. Say what you, Shama Sawant, her socialist alternative actually is pretty well organized. And they have infrastructure for mutual aid and other things. So I get what you're saying, but you're not going to win third party just if we have more people running third party. You need an infrastructure to make sure candidates have a mechanism and help to get funding. make sure candidates have a support system to get on the ballot, because it is even harder. It's harder already for progressives running in the Democratic Party. Even harder for third-party candidates to get on the ballot. To have an infrastructure to help avoid the media blackout, because they're all suffering from a media blackout, and you need media attention to have any shot. Go ask Paula Jean Swearingen in West Virginia. So the thing that's pushed out there of, well, we need more people to run if we're ever going to build a third party. Yes, but you also need actual third parties that have some type of infrastructure. Right now, and I mean, I'm not even going to address MPP because it's such a fraud at this point. I feel bad for the people that donated money to this thing. I know a lot more than I've even reported, but putting that aside. The Green Party, well, the Green Party has been running candidates forever. Some have won on the local level, but it hasn't really grown into a force over the last many years. Their devil's advocate, their argument has been because a lot of people are voting for the Democratic Party instead of voting for the Green Party. But to me, it's not just, well, if more people run third party, then third parties would be able to compete. Yes, but people need an infrastructure to run. None of these Justice Democrat candidates, for example, AOC or any of them, none of them would have had a chance without Justice Democrats. I don't like what Justice Democrats has become. I don't think they're progressive enough. I think they are supporting a lot of these progressives that have done pretty much nothing and ran on fighting and bringing the ruckus and are doing a whole lot of nothing. But none of these candidates could have won without the Justice Democrats helping them fundraising, ballot act, getting on ballots, media. That doesn't exist right now in a third party. So until people organize something that's actually organized and not just a vanity project like MPP, where some guy and his father basically want to run it and turn volunteers away and basically rule it as a dictatorship, which is not my opinion. Talk to enough volunteers who left or were purged from MPP. So those are my thoughts. Gotta go. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Thank you for the super chats. I very much appreciate it. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Ron Placone will be joining me as a co-host tomorrow. And we'll be back at it. Oh, one more. Robert Copeland, $5. On June 25th, there will be an autonomous tenants union convention in Los Angeles, which tenants union members from all over the United States. Thank you. I'm going to send that to Tina, so maybe she could cover it for us. Thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.